Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm just making sure everything's set up. I'm going to go ahead and knit a basic scarf because I know some people wanted to learn how to do that. So I posted some videos on YouTube, and I posted the edited versions also on Twitch if you want to take a look there on Twitch. One video I still have to post. It didn't upload correctly this morning on Twitch, so. How long have you been knitting? I've been knitting off and on since I was young. Frequent knitting, 07 and now. College was my years of knitting too, but that was on a knitting machine because I have a fashion design diploma from the 90s. So I did women's wear and I majored in knitwear. So, and then I just basically got really back into it in 07 and then now. Busy lifestyles, it's very hard to keep crafting up. Alright, so let's get started. Alright. Move my mic out of the way. Alright. So, I did, the videos are on Twitch and YouTube. I did a scarf in this Woolies yarn line brand in a blue with white specks. Let me get the video. So you can either view it on Twitch or you can view it on YouTube. And this is the pretty color of the scarf. I also have it up on Instagram. So the scarf that I'm knitting today is the Woolies, just like that link I posted, the Woolies there. And it's thicker yarn, so you can use bigger knitting needles. So I'm going to use size 13 knitting needles, and I'm just going to do my own design. Lots of people can just do their own design when it comes to scarves because it's all in preference. So use my Woolies, and this is oatmeal line brand yarn. I made some hats with this too, so I have a hat over there in this color and I just loved it so much that I wanted to make a scarf. Alright, so let's see how much of it gets knotted and how much doesn't. Alright. Alright, hopefully this won't knot. So the scarf that I did 30 stitches. I'm going to do 20 stitches for this one. And I have 4 balls of yarn. I'm hoping I only need 3 and then I can make another hat. The hat takes 1 ball of yarn. Okay. So basically, just figure out how much I'm going to leave of a tail to get my 20 stitches. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my 20. 2, 3, 4. Ooh, that just made it 20. And then you'll just weave in that tail later. So that's a pretty decent size for a scarf. I just love the color. So just go ahead and knit it. There we go. These knitting needles are a little long. And that's all there is to it. Just knit. And I'm not putting too much emphasis on the tension. Just kind of letting it be. Because the way I cast it on, it allows me to do that. And you just kind of pull it through, and then you just slightly tighten it. I know some people were talking about their tension. And it's hard, because sometimes if you hold the knitting needles tight, you don't want to drop the knitting needles, so it tends to kind of put more emphasis on the stitches. But I'm kind of holding the knitting needles lightly, and then I'm just going ahead and now the last one I do this, just kind of just give it that little bit, then kind of pull the end there. And then the end one is always the end that's going to be a little looser. And there's so many different variations on how to do your edging. You can just slip it without knitting it to get it decorative, or you can just knit it. I mean, I won't confuse a lot of people, but there's different ways you can do your edging. So you just keep on knitting, and see, I'm not pulling too tight. I'm just kind of letting it slip off. Now that just depends also too on your knitting technique. Chunkier yarn, when it's smaller knitting needles with thinner yarn, tension can be a little harder to maintain when you're starting out, because it can be tighter. The chunkier yarn may be something that can be a different feel, and the tension might be different. And I like chunky yarn because it knits up so much quicker. Sometimes what happens too when you're knitting, the yarn splits. So you kind of have to like really make sure your knitting needle, like, see, here's an example. See how my yarn is splitting? So I don't want to even pursue that even further. So what I want to do is take that out, figure out why it's doing that, and if it crisscrossed on my knitting needle, just kind of pop it off, keep your finger there, put it back on, and see, now it's not doing that. So then you go like this, and there you go. Sometimes the splitting isn't noticeable, and you can still figure out a way to like get it back to the right way that you've done it. And if you dropped a stitch, you can just you can use your darning needle, or you can use a crochet hook to pick it back up. But this knits up nicely and quickly. We are doing this. It's going to be so nice matching the hat. She's laying right here. There she is. There's my cat. Aw. You watching me knit? Are you watching me knit? I think she's watching me knit. She's right here. Aw. Lucy. Aw. I think she finally settled down. There we go. Teal Star Zippers, thank you for the follow. Really appreciate that. So if you're just starting out knitting and you either rewatch this video or you're watching now, if you wanted to try, this is Lion brand yarn, Thick and Quick, Woolies, Thick and Quick. Almost forgot the name of it. And I'm using size 13 knitting needles. And I mean, you don't have to get the knitting needles this long. If they're shorter, that's fine too. If you're not going to be using a bunch of stitches on it. Normally I use in the round if there's like a blanket or something I'm doing with more stitches. But this yarn really knits up nicely. It looks soft and fluffy. It does, and it is. It's I have a hat over here. Let me show you. All right. I actually have a stack of hats, and I made a scarf. I don't have the scarf here. It's in the closet. But you can see it on Instagram or YouTube or even the previous videos I just uploaded of the blue yarn with the white specks. And this is what it looks like with a hat. So it knits up nicely. Now this was knitting in the round, so it automatically does a stockinette stitch, knit and purl. And that's why it curves a little bit. So it gives you an idea. Now I could have did it in a stockinette, but I'm doing it in a garter stitch because the ends will curl. But if you know how to do knit and purl, and you don't mind the ends curling, you could definitely match with the knit and purl. And it'll just curl. I mean, I could always do an example of a scarf of knit and purl too. There's so many different ways. You can do an edging, like some sort of seed stitch, say, which is alternating knits and purls. And you can have that as a border, and it may not curl as much because it'll have some sort of weight on it. But there's all different kinds of variations. I have a knitting book that has various stitches in it, and that's how I go about to try to do generic patterns and stuff. And so there's different ways to work on it, but I think this is going to look still great with the matching. And it is soft, and it has a tiny bit of wool. And for me, I'm allergic to wool, and this has been fine. It has, I think, only 20-something% or 10%. 10% wool. It has 10%. So, yeah, it's very, it's called oatmeal, and it's very nice. The blue's really, I made 2 hats out of the blue. All right. There we go. And as you can see, I'm not pulling too hard on this. Just kind of letting it be. Just slightly tugging on it as you knit to get my tension. And if your tension was a little tight, you can just kind of wiggle it a little to give yourself some room before you actually knit. And then slightly, see how I'm doing that? I'm slightly, and then wrapping it around, and then pulling it through. As you can tell, I let my tension, I let this a little loose so my tension wouldn't be so tight. And then I just go like this, wrap it around, through, let it fall off, Go back again slightly. See how I'm just a little bit of a tug. And then I just do that through the whole thing. Just try to make my tension a little consistent. So that's how the tension works. Everyone knits differently. So if you definitely, had some projects in mind and you're overwhelmed and you weren't sure what kind of projects to work on, Red Heart yarn and Lion Brand yarn has some patterns, and this is a Lion Brand pattern, and it's a basic hat in the round if you're good at in the round, or you can do double pointed knitting needles. I guess I'm more like a real knitter. I just love knitting. Like on the top of my list of crafts would be my knitting. And of course sewing. I made some tote bags a while back, and I was thinking maybe streaming at some point some tote bags. This is what the hat looks like. There we go. All right. Let's switch it back. There. She's laying on the other hat. I think she's content. Ah, this is looking so nice. Haha, super nice. But I'm definitely gonna make it really long. Oh my goodness. Yeah, 20 stitches are pretty good. It could probably go 15 stitches, but this would look nice as a cowl. I always say that when I knit with this yarn. Look nice as a cowl. It's super nice. we go. Almost done with this yarn. Or this skein of yarn. So peace out, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you soon. Happy knitting!